stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You wait a moment to proceed the stream. Oh,
He's been out for a minute too.
oh, no, I'm cutting into your time. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'll keep going.
No records tonight.
Okay. I am got a couple minutes to approve, and I'm going to rearrange the agenda a little bit. So I am going to move to approve the regular session minutes of February 7th, 2022. That's it. Vote.
Yes.
Yes. I also move to approve the special session minutes of February 10th, 2022. Vote.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do before we go to public comment period is I would like to call up John Petrosi to front of the room, because we have a little something to give you. So
What a look. Oh my.
the staff, trustees, everybody in unanimous have voted you as employee of the year for the outstanding job that you've done with the zoning and just, doing. So we want to give this little gift to you.
Well, thank you.
For appreciation and to say thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for keeping me around.
Well,
Thanks for staying.
we don't know. You're a lifer now.
I don't know, best place I ever worked. Seriously, thank you. Deserve it.
Congratulations.
You can clap. We'll be recording.
Sorry.
Chief, you can't trust any of them.
I know. I kept asking myself, why does he need me for these computers?
Very complicated, it's over his head.
Okay, public comment period, Brookside, Worthington Hills.
Nothing, there was a call today with the parade committee, which I missed. I think everything is taken care of schedule wise.
Yes.
Okay.
We gotta have fireworks.
That was not
They're
right.
they're working on it. And they've asked, Civic Association has asked to use Township Hall for their April meeting.
Epcon Rebello.
Other than fence issues, I think there is, I don't have the date, but I know there's going to be a March public meeting. As soon as we get that date, we'll let the board know. Everyone is invited to go down and meet the residents.
Okay. Road Department.
Under old business, we have the Worthington Hills Drainage Project. The summary's been turned into Franklin County Engineer Jim Ramsey. We're just waiting to hear back from Jim Ramsey and get his thoughts on it.
Hey, we were talking, are you gonna try to schedule an online so we can kind of go through that?
I'm going to.
Okay.
I've reached out to Jim.
Okay,
He
you're on it.
hasn't responded.
Cool.
Skip new business.
Hey, Ian, just on that, I'm sorry, just on that drainage project, is there any way we can get that wrapped up by the end of the month? Because I had promised the homeowner, I know Jim's doing, but if
I'm
you could,
working on it.
yeah, all right, cool,
Hopefully he'll get back to us soon.
all right.
Do we want to let, we have someone here to talk about the road levy?
Julie.
Yeah, Julie, you there?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sure can.
All right. So Beth and I have been kind of discussing the road levies. It's my understanding you guys have two renewals and you're trying to that are on the table, and you're trying to figure out what's the best strategy in terms of timing and just general options with your road levies. So the way renewal road levies work, the township basically has, the statute provides that you have a limited window to attempt to renew a road levy. And basically it starts at the general election, the year that the levy, the last year that the levy is on. But then you have the entire following year to also put it on the ballot. And that is because real estate taxes are levied in arrears. One way to think about it is, at a restaurant, you order your food, you eat your food, you pay at the very end. Real estate taxes are generally that way as well. And so even though, for example, one of the levies, the last year that it will be on will be 2023. You'll still be collecting it in 2024. You won't get your check at the restaurant until the end of 2024. And so, the one thing that Beth had mentioned was, in terms of possible strategy for the board, was are there any opportunities for both levies to be on the same ballot? Obviously, that cuts down on confusion for the residents, and it makes sense. It makes sense why you would want to try to do it twice or two with one election. And because one of your levies will be up in 2023 and one will be up in 2024, and there's that statutory time period for when you can try for a renewal levy, it ultimately works out that there would be one election, and that would be the general election of 2024, that both levies could be on the ballot, which the risk for waiting would be that would be the last opportunity for you to try to renew your 2023 levy. So there would be risk if you decided, we're just going to hold off. We want to just, this one election cycle, that's kind of the general risk. I know Beth and I had also discussed, these are renewal levies. What are some other potential options for the township? And there are, obviously you could, instead of renewing these levies, you could potentially pursue one new levy, which would be for basically the amount that these are kicking off. What are some things to consider if you decide to go for a new levy? You wouldn't get the benefit of the state rollback, which Beth and I discussed that might not necessarily impact your residents because you have some new developments. And so even if the new levy does not include a rollback, you still might get the benefit. Your residents might not feel that increase if it doesn't have the rollback. The other thing we discussed is, there's always a question between a temporary levy, which is for a set period of time, which has to go back on the ballot, and a continual levy. And obviously that's a policy decision. Different boards have different thoughts on temporary versus continual levies. But for a road levy, you could put a permanent continual levy on that would just remain in perpetuity, and the benefit to your residents would be that they wouldn't have to continue to go back to the ballot in order to continue to get the services that they need and the township wants to provide. So that's kind of the long and short of it. I know it's a lot of information. Does the board have any questions or any thoughts?
So just to be, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just to be clear, the 2024 general election is truly the only election that we could put both on.
Correct. You could put so for the 2023 or the levy that ends in 2023, you could put it on the 2023 general election or any election in 2024. So you have multiple opportunities. For the 2024 levy, or the levy that is over in 2024, the first time you can put it on is the 2024 general, and then any election in 2025.
Yeah.
So
To combine them. and
Combined,
put
it
them-
would be 2024.
So here, another option, and this kind of gets at a new levy. So could we put on a new levy between now and when these levies have to be renewed for the amount that we need?
So
Suspend Again, if we sell it and it gets approved with the thought that we would suspend that levy. And then the 23, 24, we just don't, and then those go away, and then we unsuspend the new levy, and that goes into effect. It would be permanent, but we would have to communicate to the residents that we're doing this to get rid of 2 levies,
Right.
but we're
The
gonna,
intention is to.
yeah,
do
we're gonna
this
get it
and
approved
suspend.
for the 4 levy amount, but we're gonna immediately suspend it. Is that possible, Julie?
So I think what you're describing, I want to make sure I understand. You could absolutely put a new levy on.
Right.
But instead that levy would have to take effect, but you could suspend the 2. Ultimately, what I think you're getting at is, how do we don't want to have 3 levies on.
Right.
We don't, that's not going to work for anybody. And so you could put put a brand new levy on. And the timing of that, you do have some time. It wouldn't have to be in 2022 necessarily, but you could put a new levy on and sell to the community. If this passes, we will suspend the two existing levies will be done for.
Julie, I had a question. So you have the township did this several years ago with police levies. So they put a new one on the ballot saying, if this passes, we're going to terminate these other levies.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the option for the board would be to terminate the other 2 levies, or I guess like with a fire, you can also suspend them, which would mean you could bring that back if you needed to, but I think that would almost be a hard sell.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
You could do, correct. It would all be a matter of marketing.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, I get it. If we could just suspend them, then the risk to our residents is that we would just bring them back at any time without a vote. Right,
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
so we'd have to,
You just want to terminate them, but you don't want
We
to
have to
terminate them until you.
until you know the. right,
Until you pass the one, and until you can
Right.
start collecting on the one you just passed.
Correct.
So you don't have any gap.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how those police levies were way back when.
Yeah.
So I did, just so y'all know, I sent Carrie Ritchie an email asking for some ballpark figures, I guess you could say, what it would look like to combine. Right now you have 2 1.5 mil levies for road. So I asked her if for a new one, what would 3.0 look like? What would 2.5 look like? And then 3.5 as well. And I asked her to calculate that based on all the residents, with the exception of Epcot and Ravello. So you can see a side by side of what we're doing now. And then I also asked her to do the same to include Ravello. And that would also include the cost per $100,000 home, which is, it simplifies things a lot better if people are looking at it that way, I think.
Right.
So, and as soon as I get that information, I'll share it with the board and you, Michelle.
So a scenario, Mr. Chair, would be to put a new levy on the general, hypothetically, the general election in 23. And then if it was to hypothetically pass, which has always been supported by the community, then suspend the other 2 levies.
Mhm.
And we would sell it as such, and hopefully.
Terminate the
upon-
other 2 levies.
Or terminate the other 2
Upon
levies.
inaction of the.
Right.
Yes.
But we could potentially, depending on what the auditor's office does say, I mean, potentially could be looking at some type of tax decrease. Hopefully.
So wouldn't we want to do that this year? So it gives us a little buffer before 23.
To go back, yeah, I guess then we
Good.
could go back,
And it's a quiet election this year anyway.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I guess that's the.
I mean, the general election.
Yeah, the general election. So we would have to probably file in August and whatever, and then if we get it on 22 and it doesn't, for whatever reason, people
Then
don't
we
get
have
the
more time
idea,
to
we have
reframe
another
and-
to reframe and,
Yeah.
and, tell,
Yeah,
Julie,
I just like multiple shots at it, if we need it.
Julie, when would we need to start that? I know that's something we did talk about, the time frame wise.
So you have, if you want the, if you'd like it to be on the November ballot, you've got significant time to kind of sort through preliminary numbers. I think
All that has to be filed by August.
August, right?
exactly, you have until August to figure out what your plan of attack is. But ultimately, the process itself is first, the board adopting a resolution requesting auditor certification for a couple scenarios. Obviously, Beth is doing the initial legwork to get you guys some scenarios, but officially the board at some point will have to adopt a resolution asking the auditor to certify the amounts. When that information comes back, you'll then adopt a second resolution that will certify the levy to the Board of Elections. So it's, a two-step process with the auditor involvement in the middle. But obviously, Beth is taking care of the guesswork early on to at least get you some preliminary numbers so you have a better sense of where you want to be.
So this general election is a gubernatorial, senatorial election. It's better than a presidential election.
And here's the thing, it doesn't, I mean, I understand you, it doesn't scare me because I think it's gonna, I think.
We're not
we've all said
asking
it
for an
well.
increase, we're not asking.
No,
for-
or,
The key is the communication
Yeah.
of making sure that
Yeah.
we've provided the information so people can know what they're voting for.
I mean, the, when it happens doesn't scare me because.
No, but I do like the idea of having,
Yeah,
Multiple shots.
yeah,
it needs.
takes
people
away
just
the
don't get it.
urgency.
We
And
gotta
then-
be careful what we ask for though, because if you do the exact amount we're getting right now, right, just say it's $1 billion and it's, now you're adding though, the Rebella, the Econ homes to that.
Mhm.
What we really need, and so theoretically you would go down a little bit because you have those additional residents, but you're now taking on whatever, just call it another 10% more in roadway and that kind of stuff. So it's like, it's not gonna be an increase, but I don't think it's gonna be a decrease either, because you have to raise enough money for that additional roadways.
Sure, but I mean, I like the idea that Beth has asked Carrie for both sets of numbers with and without those properties so that we can see.
Yeah, and we got plenty of time to kind of
Mhm.
evaluate the numbers and to walk through. And I think that your pressure is gonna be on you to, tell us what your outlook is gonna be. I mean, we've gotten the majority of the curb work, pretty much under our belt, and that went for 50 years, whether we get 50 years out of curb work in the hills, would remain to be seen. But, that's where we gotta kind of focus in on your equipment, what road work that you have, and then, where does that kind of work out to be? The other thing that we got to factor in is drainage, because I think, we're starting our drainage infrastructure is gonna probably be where we're gonna be spending some of our money, so we need to understand what the county takes care of, what we take care of, and then just work the numbers based on that. But you're gonna have to do some, which I know that you have that information already, so,
Just need to work in Econ Rebello.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
I had a question.
awesome.
Do you see any like our police levies are continuous permanent levies? Do you see any negative doing the same for road? I mean, like you said, the benefit is the residents don't have to keep going back every 5 years, or, in our case, because they're alternate, a little bit more than that. So.
I don't know that it is a negative. Road levies generally are for a specific period of time, that we just generally see that trend. But I think it's a matter of, not necessarily good or bad. It's just kind of different in terms of what's the end goal of a continuous versus a temporary levy. And again, if the board, we have some boards that say we want to continue to ask the residents and get their feedback. And we have some, and obviously the flip side of that is residents, we'd like to keep a certain level of service for you. And this is a convenience factor that everyone knows that this money is going to continue to come in.
But even though it would say a permanent levy, the board still has the discretion to change things if they need to. I mean, if you find out that there's tons of growth and that the amount of revenue is more than what's needed, they would have that discretion to back it off. Or if prices go through the roof for whatever reason, put on a new levy, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Here none. Julie, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Good to
Thanks,
see you,
guys.
Billy.
You guys
Thanks.
have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Okay, what else you got?
The ODOT mileage certificate is been turned in from Franklin County Engineer. I just need to get you guys' signatures on it so I can turn it back in. They weren't able to get the mileage from Metcon on there this year. So it's too late. It needed to be done earlier in the summer.
What's the impact of that?
I wasn't sure.
Okay.
We're what is our roadway now is right around 0.8, an eighth of a mile, 0.8 miles.
That could be corrected next year.
That will be corrected next year. We were working today. He's included the other detachments. It's in their system now, so they know. It's just they have nothing showing the mileage down there for EPCON.
What's the total mileage of that going about?
I think it's 2.2 miles when I measured it earlier this summer. For all of it, that's including phase 2.
We were like 17%, or something, sorry, 17 miles or something like that.
16.2 miles.
So that's a 12% increase or something like that in our mile, in our roads. I mean, we need 12% more money. All things being equal.
Right.
Yeah.
To maintain them.
Who said we couldn't change this?
What's that?
Who from ODOT said we couldn't change?
This is Mark Mullinax. He said it was too late when I talked to him this morning.
Okay, and what's the county's role in with ODOT to determine this?
I have no clue what their role. He turns in our certificates every year.
Chad,
Yeah, Beth.
I was just gonna say, I'd had a conversation with Pete to see what the process is. And once Mark determines the mileage, the square miles, then I need to turn in a letter to the Franklin County engineer, and then they will update their systems.
The state wants on these miles, from what Mark told me this morning, whatever we turn in, they're gonna go out there and confirm it. And I don't know if that was part of why it couldn't be done yet.
The nice thing is by year, all the other roadway in that area should be completed. So you'd be updating phase 2, phase 1, and Ravello all in one time.
We don't have to pass a motion for this, right?
Yes,
We
you
just
do.
sign. We do.
Do you?
Yeah.
What's the ramification if, I mean, do you want, it sounds like you need some time. To see if you can
When's
work.
our deadline?
March 1st.
The what first?
March 1st.
Yeah.
I was hoping to wait on it this morning and was
It
told
says
it
we
had to be
hereby
turned.
certify that this was accurate as of December 31st, which technically,
I received
That's
this,
not,
what was it, last week, 2 weeks ago?
yeah.
I mean, if you need a little bit of time, I can always set up a special meeting a short special meeting if you need to get a little more clarification for it before
And
March.
that can
Oh,
happen-
virtual meeting.
It can happen virtually now.
There's-
Yeah.
Quick signatures, man. Awkward.
Well, it's still due by March the first, right?
Okay.
It is
Still do.
March.
Yeah, my next Tuesday, which is Tuesday. Tuesday, yeah,
You need some time.
yeah.
All right. We're gonna hold on it.
Okay.
Let Chet do his magic. If there is any magic there. So, all right.
The Aqua project, we talked about at the last meeting.
Yeah,
We met with Aqua and the county, and Aqua is willing to do an agreement, work with us to pave the whole road.
oh, cool.
The county, they would go through the township asphalt paving program and then just reimburse us. I think there's an agreement in the Dropbox, a sample of what it looked like.
Sweet.
That's all I have tonight.
Okay. Zoning. We have some petition updates, Beth.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have,
Staring at you.
Or chief.
I'll defer to Beth.
I have one detachment petition turned in to the county. They're doing their preliminary review. I don't have a date yet when it's being seen by the commissioners, but that is that other property off of Dublin Granville, over by the State Farm. There are 5 other residences that have the option of detaching. So I am in the process tomorrow. I'll have a letter go out to each one of those, just making sure they're aware that they have till March 21st to turn those in. After that deadline, there's no coming back into the township based on the agreement with Columbus.
Okay.
Do you want me to do the others?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just kind of give it, I mean, I can move to, because we're just receiving the zoning commission's update. And Joe, I know that you were on that call. I was on that call with the zoning commission. So do we want to kind of recap? You know, we had one, Jerome Scott had some concern about the changes to the R4 zoning. So do we want to kind of update the board as to what Jerome's concern was?
Sure. Jerome expressed the concern that what we're doing is making R4 basically look like R1. And he is correct in that. We emphasized that our goal was that moving forward, anybody in an R4, we wanted to get rid of the 8,500 square foot with sewer and water that would allow them to build a home. That would allow many residences within Worthington Hills that have quarter acre or above to actually think about tearing down an old house and potentially building 2 houses. We're taking it to 40,000 square feet. The idea here is that if it's a legally subdivided property, you're entitled to build a single family house or redevelop a single family house. But anything outside of that, and there's a few properties that fit that description right now, is that we really want to push them towards the PD process that we enacted last year. And the idea there is that we can go through everything, the looks, the layout, the coverage, et cetera. It actually allows property owners a much more flexible versus a straight zoning. Now, the R4 was extremely favorable. I'm not going to disagree with that, but it's also over 30 years old and it was adapted from the Franklin County. So Jerome's point was that he was a little concerned that residents of Worthington Hills don't know that this is going on, but our process is public. It is there. I spoke with Pete Griggs about a couple of his concerns. Pete's going to work on as little bit of an additional language that goes in there to indicate that any property that's currently subdivided absolutely has the right to redevelop a single family lot on their property, which I think addresses one of Jerome's big concerns. I don't suggest to the board that we look at reducing the square footage requirements for going forward on that. So it was a vote of 2-1 in favor of a recommendation to the Board of Trustees.
Any questions?
Was that meeting, Beth, was that meeting recorded?
Yes, Luke recorded it for me. Us.
Yeah, I'd go back and
Can
Oh, yeah,
I'll talk to you more about it.
it's on the YouTube channel.
Is it?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can get it whenever you want to.
so, so tonight, all we're doing is moving to receive the Perry Township zoning's recommendation. And then we got to set a hearing date for that. So we still have we still have input from the public. We still have that before we ultimately vote on it. So I'm going to move to receive the Perry Township Zoning Commission's recommendation related to text amendment 156-RZ-22.
Second.
Vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I also move to set the public hearing date for text amendment 156-RZ-22 for March 21st, 2022 at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
Vote.
Yes.
Yes. Zoning code rewrite recommendation, Beth?
Yes, I was on a call with Pete the other day, and I know Joe had mentioned that he had requested a cost estimate for the outside attorney to take care of the rewrite of the zoning code. The first, probably the biggest issue with that is that they are estimating between $40,000 and $50,000 for the attorney to do that rewrite. So we kind of discussed process, alternate process. Just before I had my surgery, and John Petrosi and I discussed the option of maybe the two of us, especially since we're working in the same office space typically, to kind of start going through that. I have a very long list of different issues that people have made mention of over the past few years. And then work with the county to see, because a lot of their codes are already in place, we thought. So we thought maybe John and I would start working through the rewrite, work with the county, see what they are doing in some of those different situations based on our list of things that need to be corrected. Then do as much work as we can, and then have Joe and Andy take a look over it, as well as the members of the BZA and the zoning commission. Chet had a great point that there's probably comments that we can get back just because folks have been going through these codes over the years and they're recognizing things that may need to be tweaked or fixed or completely revised. And then the final would be for the attorneys to go ahead and do the absolute final review to that. That was Pete's recommendation so far as that process was concerned. So I thought I'd just put that out there and see if everyone would be comfortable with John and I at least starting the process.
Any comments? Joe, Chief? Or-
Yeah,
Not you, Chief.
I didn't know.
Joe, Chief.
At this first I heard of the cost of what they're anticipating it to be. We had requested that of Pete. I think Beth's got some good ideas there as to ways to control the cost. So rather than make a decision tonight, I think it would behoove us to get together with Beth and John and talk about the path so that they're not entangled into a process that is rather extensive. But I do agree with Beth 100% at the end. The attorneys need to redraft it. It's not something we can redraft. So I'd say right now I'd suggest maybe taking a couple weeks to talk with everybody about the path that we're talking about.
Yeah, I was gonna just say that, I think maybe the four of us get together and just, kind of put a framework together on, the input like that, the information that, the things that you've seen, John, your short time, the things that you've seen, some of the things that Joe and I have seen in the text, just working with some of these, these new things, and then develop a framework, and then, obviously, like, you guys do the heavy lifting, but I think it's a fine path. So if we want to set up an initial kind of get together, throw everybody's ideas on there, what we think are absolute pressing, again, put a framework together, and then, start the process from there. But I'd like to, personally, I'd like to get a time frame put together for this. So, it's not just one thing that, just seems to keep, going from one, but it's part of that initial is what do we think is realistic in terms of putting getting this thing done, because it's in very much dire need to get done. So, Beth, if you want to kind of get something on the books, that'd be great. Joe, when are you back in town?
I'll be back Saturday.
All righty. And like I said, I just have the list that I've been keeping in OneNote, so I'll just share that with you all, so you can get a gist of what's on it.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm sorry. The only thing I wanted to add is I just want to make sure the board was aware. I received a complaint from an upper Arlington Point resident that trash had not been picked up down there. A letter was sent out to the waste hauler as well as to the HOA, and the trash was collected a couple days ago. They've been going for long periods of time with no collection in that area. So I think we're going to be working with the HOA and other folks down there on this until it can be completely resolved.
So Beth, to that point, I did get a call back from Republic today. They're not inclined to release them with their contract.
Okay.
I don't know why, but they said they've indicated that they have changed their operational schedule, that this should not occur in the future. My response was, well, we'll just have to see. We'll keep an eye on it with the HO or the condo associations down there. We just need to keep a closer look and make sure that they're servicing those dumpsters down there. That's totally unacceptable. What we saw down there this week.
Right. And John, I was going to get together with you this week too. If you could, I know what dates they're supposed to be picking up the trash. I was hoping that maybe one day, the day after one of those pickup dates, you could take a look down there just to make sure it's happening on time.
Yeah, I'll make that a part of a regular patrol type thing. And then I think one of the things we need to keep in our back pocket is if Republic doesn't want to do what they're supposed to do, at some point, I think we need to call the health department. I mean, we can go to the environmental court, but the health department has significant more power and input to get those kinds of processes in place. And if Republic doesn't want to release that contract, then we need to hold them to what they're supposed to do. So we'll check it regularly, Beth. We'll make that a part of our routine.
And to the chief's point, I got to call into Nikki Lemon down at the health department. I know they have a person down there. I just want to find out who that is so you can get in touch with them and say, I'm in charge with kind of looking at this on a regular basis. I just want to understand your process and what authority you have to, resolve this issue.
Yeah, it was a mess. I mean, the photos that we got, it was amazing. So Beth did a great job of jumping on that and getting it fixed. So thank you, Miss Beatty.
Calm down.
Okay. Development Director.
I think we covered the zoning resolution that's before you. Beth had a discussion with Pete Griggs, and Pete is supposed to deliver a letter to IPCON indicating that they've got a short period of time to get the development agreement and get the process for the TIF moving forward. So hopefully he meets those deadlines and gets that out. As to the Brookside project, Andy and I met with them probably a little over a week ago. They did a great job on on addressing all the comments through the first draft. We had, I'm guessing, probably 15 to 20 comments on the second set. They understood all of those. They took copious notes, they took our drawings, et cetera, and we should be seeing those early next week. So with that, at that point, we now need to set up a work session with the group to talk about it with the zoning commission, to prep them in anticipation of this coming forward. And so I'll work with Beth and John and Mary and get something set up, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And hopefully we can do it in person, and we have numerous sets of drawings with all our comments so we can educate them on the process we've gone through and answer any questions that they've got in preparation for a formal meeting.
Hey, Beth and Joe, is that work session, am I allowed to be a part of that, or am I not?
My understanding is you're allowed to be a part of it. You're not allowed to say anything.
Well, that won't be a problem.
That actually is.
Can you make sure that he's got a chair in the corner?
Just for, can we, and this is dependent on them getting their drawings back to us, but can we get that meeting scheduled, hopefully in the next week? And again, it depends on when they get their drawings back, but can we fire that up and get everybody? Because I know it took a little while to get the last meeting, but can we do that within the next week?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and send out an email to the members tomorrow and see what their availability is over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So at least we have some dates to start with.
2 weeks max, Beth, if you can.
Okay, sure. No
3 gets a little long in the tooth because we got.
And Beth, could you indicate, if you don't mind, in that email, that this could be a lengthy, I'm anticipating probably an hour to an hour and a half meeting to bring them up to snuff on everything that's occurred. It's a very involved process that we've been through.
Sure. And last time I encouraged the alternates to come just in the event that a member wasn't able to make the final meeting. So hopefully we'll have the whole group there.
Great idea.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Not on my end, unless anybody has any questions about anything else.
Fire and EMS,
Nothing to report.
police department.
I'll defer to Beth. Oh, I can't do, why does he get to do it?
He's employee of the year.
Chief Cody gets everything. So a couple of things. One thing's not on the agenda. We've had some interest from our residents for Citizens Police Academy. We're not in a position to offer our own yet. Probably in the future we can. But I had lunch with Chief Horitzek from Powell Police Department, and he's agreed to take on any and all of our residents that would be interested in the Citizens Police Academy. The officer that.
What is it, Citizens Police Academy?
It's a 10-week program. They meet for 1 night a week, and it is for all civilians. It's a Citizens Police Academy. Usually what happens, the police department takes their own residents and puts them through an abbreviated 10-week program to show kind of what police officers go through as far as crime scene, traffic enforcement, traffic stops, use of force, firearms.
There's a section on the Ohio Revised Code. They'll do building searches. They get to do ride-alongs. It's a very well-received program. It sheds some light on what it actually means and to be a policeman and how the job is to be conducted. I mean, I think so many people associate with what policemen do and what they see on TV, and the academy is really there to say, hey, here's what the laws say, here's what the authority of the police really are, here's what they can't do, here's what they can do. These programs have been in place, Andy, for probably 15 years now in some of the other suburbs, and very well received. So I think if any opportunity to offer that to our residents is a good thing, and it's good for the community, it's good for the police department.
And they,
Thanks.
and most of them do an alumni association. So the Citizens Police Academy alumni will come and volunteer for events. If there's a function in the township, we'll say if we had one in 4th of July, we may have some of the alumni come and say, we'll help you man an intersection for the parade with an officer. They don't do things on their own, but kid print ID, you know, there's a lot of things that they will volunteer to kind of just be a part of the event, and work with the police department on. So,
Does that create any liability issues for?
no, nope, not at all. And so I spoke with the officer in charge of their Citizens Police Academy, and I'm gonna work with Luke to kind of get that out for folks that are interested. There's a link that they can sign up and do everything through the city of Powell.
Could we make sure, I know I asked you earlier, could we make sure that the civic associations and the HOA,
Yes, absolutely.
they get that information? I know it came up a couple weeks ago, maybe a
Yeah.
month now ago.
Well, I know there's a couple residents at EPCON that have approached, they've sent emails and talked about it. And we've had a couple of people reach out about it as well.
Okay.
The second thing is Sergeant Ed Contal tendered his resignation as of last Friday. He's decided to move on. He is ready for a separation from law enforcement completely. And he wanted me to pass along his appreciation for allowing him to be here and finish his career here in transition. So if you would please accept his resignation.
I'll make that motion.
Second vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Last, I would like to ask for, talk to you about computers for our cars. A couple years ago, we had computers replaced in our cars with MDTs. At the time, they were refurbished, but what we weren't aware of when they were refurbished, they were 8 years old when we got. We've had several issues with them, and we just recently had an issue with our the mounts and docking station in the car where the computer sits are about 17 years old, and we have one of our stands has a problem, and they can no longer get parts to fix it. At this point, if anything goes wrong, we're just kind of out of luck. So the lieutenant and I've been working with a company called Strategic Sourcing. There's a gentleman by the name of Howard Mandel. He's not the same one with America's Got Talent. Different one.
It's not smash watermelons.
No, he doesn't smash watermelon, he doesn't do any of that stuff. And he will shake your hand too. But
I was thinking that was the wrong one. That was.
Oh, was it Gallagher? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Comedian.
that's the guy with the ponytail, right?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I thought the same thing too. All right. So we have a couple options when it comes to computers. And one of the things is we can buy computers outright. And we've talked to a couple different organizations or businesses that do computers. And we can buy them outright, but the average life of a laptop is 3 to 5 years, and technology change and so forth. So we can buy them outright or we can lease. My recommendation is to lease, and the lease program that he put together will be a 4-year lease, and it is a one payment per year of $12,729.41. That includes 10 computers, all the equipment needed for the cars, and it also includes a docking station inside the police building. So you can remove the screen, bring it inside and finish your paperwork, if that makes sense. So, and if you have an arrest, you can dock that without having to log into another system. I'm sorry, go ahead. The 4-year lease, it is covered bumper to bumper, so to speak, is the way they explained it. If we pull a computer out and drop it, we send it back, they replace it. It is covered for anything and everything. And at the end of the 4 years, we have the option to buy out the computers, or we can just re-sign another lease and they replace it with the next version of what we have. So
Steve, how's that, like, is this another line item in your budget, or how do you, so obviously you don't have this, so this will be basically part of your year budget moving forward.
Correct,
So you'll
yes.
absorb that, you're good with that?
Yes.
your Budget. And
Yeah.
everything.
the other side of that is we have signed an agreement with this company. They will help us find a grant to pay for this. So we need to move forward to replace them now, but if we get the grant, they help us find the grant, we have someone write the grant, and they help us submit, and they tweak the grant for us to make sure there's no mistakes.
Okay.
The agreement for them is there's no charge to us, we just agree to use them to purchase our equipment from. And so once that happens, it will be a reimbursement for anything. So if we do this now, we get the grant, they'll reimburse us that, and then we have the money to continue.
Okay, all right,
So
yeah,
this is purely hardware, though,
This
not
is the-
updates, software.
This takes care of everything. This is
Okay, so
new
this-
computers, this is everything. Beth reached out to Think CSC for them to update all the computers. There's no charge as part of our MSP. So it's existing equipment for us, so we replace it. The only additional cost is $1,800 for PAR to retrofit all of our cars. So, and we have 8 Mark Cruisers. We have 2 getting ready to be replaced. There's no charge to replace computers in that except the cost of the equipment. PAR's already quoted us, like they said, doesn't matter what we install, they install whatever we give them. The other 6 cars are $300 a car to take out everything that's in there and replace everything that's new.
So the $1,800 is for the installation of the
new
new
computers.
docks. or
Well,
the-
it's to take everything out and replace.
The rip and replace, and
Yeah.
the new installation piece comes with the computers then?
You're talking about software side? or-
No, I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right, the part that it actually attaches into the car.
Yeah, everything's there. It's one big package. So everything is ordered, everything comes in. We hand it off to PAR, they start retrofitting cars. They take out all the old computers and stands, put in all the new computers and stands. And they charge $300 a car to do that. That's where the 1,800 comes from.
I thought you had 8.
We do, we have 2 cars being replaced that are already
So you're
there.
already-
That's already considered the factor of the outfit.
I think that's right. I've talked, just about it, I'm fine with it. And this is kind of, I look at this as almost like copiers, you know, we've done. It makes more sense to lease copiers sometimes than it does to pay for, you know, repairs, and then they get outdated computers are even more that way. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the other issue you need to look at with these is that these computers, many of them run at least 16 hours out of any given day.
Mhm.
They are in a not what you would call a controlled environment. So they get much more wear and tear. And with the warranty based on the lease program, it really makes sense. When something breaks, I mean, we've gone for the last 6-7 years trying to replace touch screens and replace the mouse pads and all the things that go bad with these computers that are in the car. And right now with this program, if one of those go bad, you just send it in, they bring a new one. I mean, it really makes
Yeah.
sense. I think in the long run, you save that money we were spending on maintenance agreements through the lease.
well, at some point you have to have a replacement schedule too.
Yes.
Right, and I think with that 4-year lease, you kind of have that built in.
And one of the things you talked about, the line item, I'm working with Mary for future budgets to create line items for several items. So that way, when the time comes, the replacement cost is already there.
yeah.
So
And the annual payments do not fluctuate. I mean, I see
No.
the one page, but is
no,
that the entire agreement?
the annual payment is $12,729.41. That's per year, and it doesn't change over the 4 years.
Did they give you some other agreement other than the proposal, or would that be? that we would
Well,
have?
there's a buy or a lease. So, and again, I opted to go with lease.
So we're making a motion tonight to approve the agreement, the lease agreement for $12,729.41.
Yes, that's per year for 4 years.
Okay,
And that's a deferred option too. That gives us 90 days to kind of get everything in order and so forth before we have to make that payment.
And do you also need a motion then for the installation? Or will that come later,
We can have, absolutely.
which is $1,800?
yeah.
You want 2 separate motions or you want combined motion?
Yeah,
They're different vendors.
Yeah, there's different vendors.
That's
so
true.
it'd be 2 separate.
Okay.
I make a motion in here, contract to lease the computers for police at a cost of $12,729 $729.41 a year for a 4-year period.
Second.
Vote. Yes.
And I move that we enter into a contract for $1,800 to replace the modules in the 6 cruisers that need that done.
Second.
Vote. Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, that's all you got.
I mean, you started by giving grief to the board for, John getting everything he wants, and then you ask for a bunch of money. It's
He got
really
the
not your
deferred- he got
best
the deferred
plan.
debt. I'm just saying, Hey, remember, we're getting snow on Friday. If I see you stuck, I'll drive by. Just saying.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, Madam Administrator.
Okay, thank you. So there, I actually had, I apologize, I put a couple things under mine and they should have gone somewhere else, but my first thing is the resolution to extend the detachment timeline for Haddon Farms, which includes the 4 homes on Newcomer. The city agreement with Perry states that the particular parcels are be extended 12 more months from the original 12.
Okay. I move to authorize the extension of the detachment filing period for non-Perry Township parcels that set forth in the annexation agreement with the city of Columbus.
Second.
Vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, the next one is we've been working with LEPD. They would have requested to use a portion of Schuster Road that dead ends that belongs to the township. It's an easement section. We had a discussion with the county, the owners of LEPD and township reps. The option that came about was for the township to enter into agreement where they can use that parking area, but there are caveats to that within the agreement, which is in your Dropbox. One of which is that the LAPD has to take care of any snow and ice removal in that area. So I would like to ask for a motion to approve the parking easement agreement between Perry Township Board of Trustees and LAPD Property Management LET, and authorize the township administrator to execute the agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Second. Vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Beth, can we go back one to
Sure.
the extension, what we just did?
The extension.
Extension, yes. So you're gonna write a nice little letter to the city of Columbus this week,
I will.
right? Okay,
Right.
I'll let them know it's coming.
By them of that, so. Okay, who will be reaching out to Mr. Haddon to confirm that this was approved? Andy and Joe, you gonna take?
I will. I
Okay,
will.
Andy,
you.
I believe as we left it, that you're going to generate a letter, correct? Surmising. our
Can you and I talk about that offline?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, the next thing is on my agenda is I just want to give everyone a heads up that our contract with Rumpke ends June 30th of this year. So I've been in contact with Taylor Greenlee over at Rumpke. The board has a couple options to extend that agreement. She's putting together some initial information for the board to review, but you'll either be asked at some point, depending on what you decide, to extend the agreement, or if you choose to go out for bids, we're going to need some extra time to make that happen. One of the things I would like to do, I have a meeting scheduled with with Luke on Friday. Years ago, we sent out a survey to all township residents, getting feedback from them. So we would like to tweak that survey to make it more, closer to the type of agreement we have now, which includes obviously year-round recycling every week. So, and get that sent out to residents so we make sure we have their feedback before we get too far down this road. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Chet, there's the Henderson Heights Water and Sewer Access. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so we got word from a resident on Henderson Heights that they're going to need to re-drill a new well. All the properties down Henderson Heights, Woodview, Shelby are all on well and septic, and that is the area, the agreement, which is colored orange, which is to be determined because the city of Columbus viewed that as an area that should be developed in a commercial status and not be residential. You know, so be it for the homeowners down there, I mean, but, so anyway, this has brought up the issue of how we assist those property owners. One thing is we do have to re-engage the city of Columbus to try to figure out what we're going to be with this to be determined area. And obviously they don't want to leave Perry Township, so it's not something that we're just gonna give to the city of Columbus, but we're going to figure out what we can do. The infrastructure down there is limited as far as water and sewer, where it's located for those residents. And so infrastructure would have to be paid for and put in place down there for them to actually get water and sewer. I think that's one of the resistance that city of Columbus had in that regard. The other thing is there, try to maybe reach out to some of our friends in other areas to figure out if there's any funding available for people who may need to drill a new well or address a septic system. Septic is a little bit easier because there's federal funding for that through Franklin County Public Health. The system is not operable. Water's a different story, so we're just gonna have to try to help see if we can find financial assistance. We could use the tap-in fee for the county permit, which in this particular case is $400. But I think, Beth, the overall bill was more like 5,500 or something like that.
A little.
6,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a small part of it, so we're just gonna have to try to help figure that out. But there's, and Luke may know better how many exact homes, and I always want to say 60. I think maybe there's a little less than 60.
Yeah, I think it's closer to like 55, but
Okay.
you're closer than your usual
Close.
guesses.
So, so this is kind of the tip of the iceberg down there for this group of residents, and we're just going to have to try to figure out how we can assist them moving forward, both long range as well as short term. So I just raised that to the board's attention. We were hopeful that we could use federal funds to assist, but we were clearly told by legal counsel that it would be inappropriate. So we'll have to figure another route to assist. So just wanted to put that on your radar.
The next thing, oh, I thought somebody else was talking. I was, I'm getting feedback from the iPad here. So the next thing on the agenda for me is the employee status change. And this is actually for the administrator position. I have been non-exempt from overtime for quite some time. And we have had discussions with Jonathan Downs. He checked everything through and through so far as well, or not whether or not my position qualifies to be exempt. And it was determined it is. He reorganized the job description that I've been working under a little bit. He made some changes to make it more specific. But the biggest change in there is that any hours worked beyond the 40 will be compensated with flex time at a rate of hour for hour versus time and a half. The conditions would be that I need to be able to use whatever flex time earned within the calendar year. And I'm very willing to do this, obviously it's going to make my life quite a bit easier, and it's going to save the township money in the process. So I would like to have a motion to approve the revised administrator's job description and task analysis.
I will make that motion. Second. Vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. I'm gonna ask to just get clarification on a couple things. The last meeting, we were talking about PIO liaisons and records clerk liaisons. When Mary went to listen to the video of the last meeting, we realized that it wasn't exactly clear. So this time I'm breaking it down into two pieces. And it's just for the record, for the minutes record. For PIO liaison, we needed to be clear on who would be taking that role.
Isn't that Chet?
So are we breaking it apart then into records and PIO? Is that?
Well, yeah, it's like when the discussion happened, the focus of the discussion was actually on the records. And when we went back and looked, there was almost nothing said about the PIO position. So I thought maybe just do it one at a time, break it up, and see what the board wishes to do on that end.
I think the records clerk, so call me Stu, PIO.
Public information officer. He has two positions. We hired him under two.
He serves two functions.
Two functions.
Right.
We pay you for one, you do two. What a deal.
I know, it's great, 2 for 1.
Right. So I initially,
So under public information, what things is that like?
How are you defining what's in that category
Yeah.
versus records? Just to be very clear, so we're all.
Yeah. So what would be under PIO, your activities under PIO versus, or Luke's position under PIO? I mean, I think records is pretty clear. I think I'm just on PIO. What duties are we doing under PIO?
Public information officer generally is press releases,
Social media.
communication, social media, communication regarding programs and services that we're pushing out there.
So communications.
Communications, yeah.
So my thing is if I mean, this is my 2 cents. If Chet is the township spokesperson, he ought to be tied to what gets said and what doesn't get said. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that, we all don't get a bite at the apple if anything goes out. And I think that's what we need to make sure that we're doing, is that before things get sent out to the township, that we have another set of eyes on it and that. So that would be the only thing I would request. But in terms of, the trustee liaison for public, that type of social media, because if something gets sent and we get a call back on it, I mean, it's coming to your, it's coming to your.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's, for instance, it's a police issue, I know obviously Luke is going to be working with Chief Cicero or the lieutenant or whoever appropriate, and then they're going to be working with Mr. Roper because he's the liaison. So I'm not going to deal with police announcements or whatever. But to Andy's point, I mean, anything that's kind of more of a broad-based kind of thing from the board has to see it. They have to kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I do think
Eyes
we
on
want to
it
make
and
sure
kind
before
of
something goes
change,
out to the
because
residents that we. have an
Everybody has
opportunity to
different
see it.
perspective of how you read things and how it's being perceived. So I think that's extremely important. Now, the social media things, the general stuff that we do, like leaf collection and, brush chipping and all that. I mean,
Right,
those are
the
kind of
standards.
standard things that kind of go out. You may tweak it here or there every year, but it's pretty standard. And you generally work with the department heads, and Mary is your direct report. So
Yeah, usually what happens is if say there's like a police alert or something that chief or lieutenant wants to send out, they just let me know. I prepare something, they look over it, they say, yep, that looks good. That's it.
So is that where, and I don't know if this is the kind of scenario you're talking about, but if there was something going on in one of the neighborhoods that was a police issue,
Mhm.
is that where we would get a heads up though, so we know before the residents come to us? Because I know we've
It
talked
depends.
about how that,
It all depends. It depends.
and
if
I
it's-
don't mean if you're out responding, I don't
No,
mean
no,
stop, pull over.
Right, no, what I'm saying, yeah, if it's, a situation where there's an emergency in the neighborhood, I may reach out to Luke and say, send this out to Brookside because here's what's going on
Mhm.
immediately. If we're to release a media statement, then that's where I would call Mr. Roper and say, I'm putting it together, because we actually have a PIO in the police department too.
Mhm.
And I would say, here's the statement, he or she's prepared, and it's actually Cynthia Forsythe is gonna be our new PIO, but she would put something together. I would let him know, he would read it, say, yes, okay. And then I would give it to Luke and say, here's what we're putting out. He would put it out for the township. And then Cynthia would put it out to the media, if that makes sense.
So, but I think what she's trying to get, so
I'm trying to figure
God
out where,
forbid,
where
that-
the ownership is.
yeah, that Brookside has, that we find another body somewhere, okay?
We're gonna go to that
I
one.
would like to know that was the prior chief.
I know. Nothing happens at Perry Township, I'm reminded of that. So if it's something like that,
Yes,
I mean, obviously you're gonna let the board know, but you're really gonna let Michelle know because she lives over in Brookside.
Just like if it
So-
was, right. the-
Right. I
So I think
I
we're just
know
trying to make
each
sure-
situation is a little bit different
Right.
and, you know, I kind of leave it up to your judgment, but with the understanding that some things rise to a certain level that the board needs to know before anybody
Absolutely.
else kind of thing.
yes.
Right, can I just add something here? The way we've kind of been handling it, especially with the police, because if it's an emergency situation, they need to focus on the emergency. But like a couple weeks ago, I try, typically the Steve in particular, because of the nature of the work, will let me know. And so I always text all of you to make sure that you have heads up. That way he can kind of go back to doing what he's doing without sitting there trying to text to send
That's
to all.
perfect. I mean, I'm not trying to add it to you. I'm
Oh,
just
no,
trying to
not at
figure
all.
out where.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
it.
And just so, I guess to clarify too, anything that is newsworthy or something that may, I let Beth know everything. Again, she's my first
Mhm.
supervisor. I always let her know. I'll text her, call her, here's what we've got. And then we decide, okay, is this something if it's 2:00 in the morning, we need to notify the elected officials now, or can we wait till first thing in the morning type thing? So, and then we make a decision from there.
Okay.
So does that I hope that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, it does.
So,
It does.
Yeah, 'cause
I just didn't know if that was changing with the
No.
discussion.
I mean, so under PIO liaison, I think that's Chad, but understanding that, if there's a, communication going out, we at least, I mean, if we've got time, at least we get, all the trustees get a bite at the apple to review it.
Yeah.
Our comments, that sort of thing. So that would be the only thing.
And
And
I
if I
one
can
last thing,
So
how-
it's
how
always
we
a better
typically
product.
handled is, if we're on an active scene and the media shows up, we just tell them,
Yeah.
we confirm this is what's going on, we'll have a statement at a later time.
Right.
So that's usually where we go, and then we'll prepare something so you can
Mhm.
see it before we would
All
release
right,
that.
cool. And then the records clerk, I think that's Michelle. So
Right.
that's what we decide. So Mary, does that give you what you
Yeah.
need? Okay, cool.
Okay.
Maybe if I may.
Yeah.
I just want the board to know that I always opted for the 2 AM call.
And I
will
called
tell
you plenty of times at 2 AM.
Some of
Oh,
our
you was
residents
there.
have no issue with calling me at 2 AM to ask me questions about things in the neighborhood, so
I just think the board appreciates that.
we do.
That's the notification support.
Absolutely. All right.
The only other
Right.
my agenda is, we did this with the CARES Act. I've added a American Relief Plan funding section, just so that we have a go-to if we need to go back and review minutes and such. We worked with Julie from Mr. Brochus's office on this. The police department would like to purchase 4 radar signs with a trailer. I've been kind enough to put this information all together for everybody. What they're looking for is 4 radar signs, a trailer to haul it, and then their shipping charges, which is a total of $18,772. Under the guidelines of the ARP, those purchases can be expended from the funds that the township has received to date. Steve, Ian, did you want to kind of give a better explanation of why you're looking at buying new for these things?
So we have a company that we have our older signs with. And unfortunately, there's some technology with those is a little cumbersome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, so we can still use them, but the cloud storage on those is about,
Like 1,500 a year.
about 1,500 a year for one sign.
It's one.
That's one sign. If we do these signs, which would give us a total of, how many signs a total?
Six.
6 signs. It will be 2,400 per year, and I will cancel the subscription on the other signs. We can still use those and place them, but we just won't use the data tracking on it.
So we'd have 4 with cloud storage
We would have a
and
total
then
of 6.
2
We'd have a total of 6.
without, is what we're saying we would go to.
Yeah, we would have 6 that would be permanent, or 5 that would be permanent, is that right?
We would have 5 that would be permanent. We would take the 6th and put it on a trailer.
Yeah.
There's
so
a
that
lot
would
of
be-
people that request,
Mhm.
put it
Oh,
out in
yeah,
front of
there's
their
some
house.
like,
And then the
The
older
target
ones
zone.
that we have, we could still move those around if need be.
Mhm.
They just wouldn't track the data. But it can be
Okay.
used as a deterrent to help in a troubled area, if that makes sense. For as long as they, because once they go by the wayside, so to speak, we're not gonna replace them, but we'll use them as
So
long as they're serviceable.
would this be replacing then? Would we swap out the signs on McVeigh?
No,
With-
these signs are the same
This is
as what's on McVeigh.
Yeah.
We'd like to add 3 in Worthington Hills.
Okay.
Um,
I didn't
we've
know if
been-
those are the ones that you were saying had this different cost.
No,
You're talking
these
about
are older
ones.
It's the older ones,
No,
yeah.
you got the good stuff. All right, so
Yeah.
you got the good stuff.
We're swapping out the old ones. The old ones are what's rotating around.
I'm gonna go mark.
Oh, Lord, you wanted more. We have more signs.
Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize an expenditure from the American Rescue Plan funds under the Township Standard Allowance for the radar sign equipment.
Second vote,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, thank you all very much. That's all I have unless you have any questions for me.
Nope, Fiscal officer,
Request motion for approval of payroll and disbursements.
I'll make that motion. I have a second.
Second.
Vote,
That's where we're gonna
Yes.
stop.
Great.
No payroll.
Okay,
anything else? I move to adjourn.
great.
Second.